The Chicago Bears phones are ringing, and apparently not only is DJ Moore and Tyson Bagent and Tremaine Edmunds all reportedly players that could be traded by the Chicago Bears, but they're also receiving calls on Gervon Dexter. The trade interest around the Chicago Bears is real, and apparently Ryan Poles is not hanging up the phone. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, especially with the cap pressure that's building with the Chicago Bears, and we're going to look at 5 edges in this draft that could all help the Chicago Bears. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Air Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And one of the things that just came out, and I'm going to start off the top of the show with this. I was going to start off with the 5 edge prospects for the Bears, but apparently this, according to Jordan Schultz, is that that the teams have acquired about Javon Dexter, the defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears, and we'll see what's going to happen there, right? The 2026 draft class, you know, people are contemplating how deep it is in the interior defensive line, even though I got some peak players that I do like in that one. Javon Dexter, who's 24 years old, he started all 17 games last year for the Chicago Bears. He had 44 total tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks, 11 QB hits, and 2 fumble recoveries. Now, that's not a bad season by any stretch of the imagination, but many Bears fans will know that it's not just about the numbers with a guy like Javon Dexter. It's also about the things that we don't see, the things that aren't registered in the stat sheet. And his run defense leaves a lot to be desired, and he is one of the reasons why the Chicago Bears could not stop the run. Now, of course, you can pair him with a defensive tackle that is better in the run game, and we can theoretically get better performances out of that. Shamar Turner, who didn't play a lot for the Chicago Bears last year, is going to shape up to be at least in the rotation some next season. But we'll see what's going to happen here now. Defensive tackle is one of the biggest needs that the Chicago Bears have this offseason. And even with Javon Dexter under contract, even, with, disappointing showing from the group overall, you still look at him and say, listen, I don't think that you necessarily have to trade Javon Dexter. Now, I do think that the Bears are going to look to draft a young tackle or get a young tackle in here that you can play, and then you still have Grady Jarrett, Javon Dexter, and that new tackle. Grady Jarrett's the one, of any player, that I would contemplate if I'm the Chicago Bears not bringing back. But hey, if the Bears are already allowing Tremaine Edmunds to seek a trade out in the offseason, it shouldn't surprise anybody that, hey, maybe the Bears are open to shopping a lot of things if they feel like they can get the necessary improvements in here. We know that Ryan Poles, and he's basically said it with all of these rumors, he's going to listen to the calls. He's going to listen to the offers. He's going to go back and play that against what he feels he can get in the draft, what he can get in free agency, all keeping the cap situation tight with the Chicago Bears. But hey, if the Bears do have any type of doubt around the possibility of trading or Javon Dexter in long term here with the Chicago Bears, then we could very well see a deal get done and him get moved. Now, I'm not going to be willing to go into this and saying outright that Javon Dexter is going to be traded, but it is interesting enough that teams around the league are calling on Javon Dexter. Now, Dex has been a player that's gotten better every single year of his NFL career, but the problem is, right, even though he's gotten better at things that he was already strong at, he's refined those a little bit. His weaknesses, that's one of the questions for Javon Dexter. How much better has his weaknesses really gotten? And that's where it leaves some questions there, right? I still think it was right for the Chicago Bears, to get Darnell Wright where they got a draft pick at, rather than getting the interior defensive lineman there. Javon Dexter has been solid. He's been solid. But the thing that you have to ask yourself with all these guys is not just what they do well, how much are the things that they don't do well really hurting and holding your team back? Javon Dexter's only missed 2 games in the totality of his NFL career, and those 2 games were in 2024. All 17 played his rookie season. All 17 played last year as well. And so that's a thing that you have to look at. He went from 5 sacks in 2024 to 6 sacks this season. He went from 2 fumbles recovery in the second season, the same thing being there as well. No passes deflected, nothing like that. But Javon has refined some things, but it's still not at the place where I would look at Javon Dexter and say that it's completely outside the realm of possibility. It really depends on what is being offered for you, and then what you think you can do in other places. Does trading Gervon Dexter free you up to maybe go after an earlier defensive tackle, but what you get back, maybe you can go at a linebacker later on in the draft, right? That's the thing that you have to weigh with all of these trade scenarios for the Chicago Bears. But let's recap this real quick, right? When we're talking about all the players that we've heard for the Chicago Bears that could very well have trade interest, Gervon Dexter is the latest. We also heard about Tyson Bagent earlier this week and the trade interest around him that he's garnering, and Ryan Poles talked about that when he talked at the draft combine about what that means for, how even though they like Tyson Bagent, they have to review everything and take a look at it. So they're there with Tyson Bagent. We know that they've given Tremaine Edmunds permission to go out and seek a trade as well, which kind of maybe points to is if he can't find a trade, is he going to be cut outright? Like, you have that one. And so those are all things that you're looking at for. And then when you hear in that there are also some other names when it comes down to it as well, the DJ Moore aspect. Ryan Poles is very clear on that. They like DJ Moore, but there's a possibility that they could trade him. Here's what I'll say to this too. If you are a fan and you think there's absolutely no way that the Chicago Bears trade DJ Moore, I'm sorry, I hate to tell you that, but you got to wake up and come into reality. There's absolutely a chance that they trade DJ Moore. Now, I'm not saying that they do it for sure, but there are just too many people that really think if we get to the point to where you think that DJ Moore is completely untouchable on this team, then to me, you're saying that you think that this team is good enough to just compete as is, and they're not, right? I was in the comment section talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, there aren't going to be no cuts for the Bears. It's only going to be restructuring. Like, come on now. I get it, and we all have, to some degree, an affinity for some of these players, but let's be real here, right? And I would say this, if Ryan Poles has that mindset that some of you guys have, that a lot of these guys are completely untouchable and unmovable, then that's not the right mindset you need to have as a GM. It's just not the right mindset that you need to have as a GM. And then the Bears, with all the progress they made this past season, they're just going to spin the wheels and stay in place if that ends up being the case. Now, I will say this as well, and shout out to Big Kev who had his mock draft out. We don't have to go after the Max Crosbys and the Trey Hendricksons. I'm not saying that either, and that's something that I also want to point out. For the people who think if you don't get Trey, if you don't get Max, it's a fail by the Chicago Bears. They're not serious. I see all the comments. You're also tripping in that one because it's not about just the name. It's about the production. You also, as me and Bobby talked about on our breaking news episode yesterday, it's also about looking at where the runway is for the rest of your team and think you also have to, the good GMs, if you want to be great and build something sustainable that lasts for years, you also have to future forecast. You have to look at the cap situation that's coming up for your team and how to manage that, how to distribute that, all that type of stuff. And so, getting a $20 million contract right now for the Chicago Bears would be hugely limiting to some of the things that they want to do. And then we could start seeing that some of the other positions definitely get hurt by that. So like I keep saying, it's a tight needle that needs to be threaded here. And us as fans, we have a different mindset because we can look more at just the now than what a actual GM and somebody running a front office for a football team or any sports team actually needs to do. So, hearing this, the Tremaine Edmunds things, Tyson Bagent, Javon Dexter, possibly DJ Moore, those type of things. Ryan Poles even saying he's gotten calls on guys like Cole Kmet and stuff like that, and there are interest in those players. The Bears are going to will and deal. There is going to be a move made that surprises us. I don't know what that move is. I don't know who that player ends up being, but I would not be surprised if we get a move that we look back on and say, damn, we did not expect that player to be moved. Now, what are you going to do with that opportunity that opens up? That becomes the next question here for the Chicago Bears if they do that. And so, listen, Dex, shout out to Dex. If Dex ends up staying here, I want to see him continue to work with a guy like Dennis Allen and see how, with having the secondary fully healthy, making improvements other places on the defensive line, how Dex continues to develop. But at the same time, like I said, to go back to it, what I said at the beginning of this, it's not just about what you do well. It's also about the things that you don't do well and how much that limits the ceiling of your team and of your side of the ball, of the defense. And that is something that I expect Ryan Poles, I expect everybody to be reviewing here when they make the decisions on how they want to change and revamp this defensive line, that a lot of that's going to come down to how much they view the limitations that are there by certain players and what that then leads them to do. And we'll see where they come out on that, because I think it's going to be a place that there's going to be some things in that we all don't expect, or that can catch us all off guard. There's going to be some things in that do all those things. It's just it's going to be something. Not saying a lot, and I don't think we're going to have a hugely flashy offseason. Ryan Poles has basically said the same thing himself, right? It's not, if you're expecting a huge swing, I think that a lot of people are going to be disappointed if that's your expectations for this offseason. But if you are expecting a more focused, deliberate, and intentional offseason, That is where I think Ryan Poles is going to cook the most at. It's going to be very deliberate in what he does with this roster and how he maneuvers the cap situation with the draft picks and making improvements with some key veterans. I think that's going to be the masterclass that Ryan Poles puts on this year. It's not going to be hitting the home run hit of a Max Crosby type level move. It's going to be some other things within that people don't necessarily expect, and that's what I think you have to look at and be a little bit more reasonable and realistic for the Chicago Bears. And, we'll see how things shake out with that one. But let me know you guys' thoughts down below. Hearing that Javon Dexter, the latest Chicago Bear that could be garnering some trade interest around the league, what would you want back for Javon Dexter? Or are you in the boat, improve the guy next to Javon Dexter, and then get a nice balance there, and then let's see what we have as long as with veteran Grady Jarrett. Let me know what you guys think on that. It's funny because Dominique Robinson may be the one that ends up surviving all of this. Anyway, let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. With that said, we know that we're in heavy draft season, and today is actually the day where defensive linemen are going to be working out at the NFL Draft Combine. So what better way to look at some edge rushers in this draft that the Chicago Bears should absolutely be looking at in this combine that could be that edge on the opposite side of Montez Sweat and help form a triple header monster with Austin Booker, who I think Austin Booker is going to have a nice leap this season as well. The leap that we kind of predicted last year, but then injury kind of took that away from him. But let's talk about it. First up, David Bailey out of Texas Tech, right? When you look at this guy, this is one of those guys that, it's hard for people to stay. He just gets shit done, right? He slashes really good. He has explosiveness. He has really good fluidity on top of all of that. He really uses his leverage really well also. Right now, some of that is he can with blockers with good hand technique. David Bailey has had a little bit of an issue with that at times, and that's something that you can't overlook. But listen, you can teach that, right? And this is a guy that I think has all the advanced moves and the potential to be a starter at the NFL level. And you look at what he's able to do and what he's already done at Texas Tech. This is a guy that can absolutely ball out. 6'3", 250 pounds. He had 14 and a half sacks just last year in 2025. And when you look at it as well, he's other than his freshman year at Stanford, where he had 2.5 sacks. After that, 5 sacks, 7 sacks, 14 and a half sacks. This is a guy that you love his motor. You love the way that he, like I said, the advanced moves that he has, all those type of things. He has the physical makeup that Dennis Allen likes on that defensive line as well. And I think this is also the one thing that you have to worry about. This is that teams could focus on him in the run game and target him on the running side of the ball. That is the one place, because of the lack of anchor at times, that you can try to attack him. Now, again, he has really good workaround quickness where he gets around some people and he has that quickness. He gets tackles for a loss, all those type of things. But I do think the size and stuff like that, that's where you kind of look at that. But listen, this guy has athleticism out the wazoo. He has explosiveness. He is a elite athlete when it all comes down to that. And I think when you look at his sack production as well, it's a really good that projects to carry over to a large degree over in the NFL as well. I love David Bailey here for the Chicago Bears. If they were able to get him and develop him with that hand technique a little bit more, learn some of the kind of things that you learn as a veteran, and that anchor can get a little bit better, man, I think that this guy is going to be really good. I think he's going to be really good at the next level of the NFL, and I could absolutely see us running into a situation with having him, Montez Sweat, Austin Booker. If you also improve a little bit on that defensive line and the interior defensive line also, and then we could turn one of our weaknesses into a strength as far as being able to get to the quarterback. And what David Bailey would also bring to this team is, simply put, is somebody that you can't just double team Montez Sweat every single time. If you get consistent pressure also from the interior, that can get a pairing that's just going to cook in the NFL. I love the prospect of this. I love the chances of this. We just got to see if the Bears also figure out that. But I love David Bailey here, and he could be a great prospect for the Chicago Bears. Next up, Cashius Howell out of Texas A&M. This is a guy that had 11 and a half sacks last year, 6'2", 248 pounds. I like this guy's motor a lot. And again, when you look at a lot of these guys, I'm going to bring it up, motor is one of the things that stand out the most about him as well, right? And there's a great chance that he's going to be available there at pick 25 for the Chicago Bears as well. When you look at the scouting report out on him, it says this: bendy edge rusher with standout sack totals, burst and elusiveness are Howell's rush menu, and he pairs it with a refreshing inside spin counter. Though threatening his rush, could be even more cohesive sequencing and better handwork to fully unlock his potential. As a defender, he's frequently knocked around at the point and struggles to consistently execute tasks asked of an NFL edge setter. Howell may not be three-down player right away, but his ability to create pressure sets him up for a role as a designated rusher at minimum. So, some limitations there. Of course, when you look at it, the sack total is great. It seems like, according to the scouting report, there's some doubts about him being an every down edge there. But at least for the first season, we'll have Austin Booker as well. You may have to pair that. But the sack production is undeniable. 11.5 sacks last year, 4 the year before that, 9.5 the year before that. This is a guy that absolutely gets sacks as well. Also, the passes deflected. He's had 6 passes deflected last year, 7 the year before that as well. This is a guy that just has really good instincts. And I think there's something to be said about having good instinctual players when you are at that level of the NFL. You just never know. And I'm not comparing him. I want to be clear here. In no way am I comparing him to Max Crosby. But I'm saying when you look at Max Crosby, sometimes Max Crosby make plays that are just instinct. And those aren't even just about his skill level. It's just the instinct and smarts as a football player. And I think Howell has really good instincts. I'm not saying at the level of a Max Crosby, but I do think that when you go back and look at some of his game, you see those instincts and the ability to just kind of figure out where the ball is going to go. Those instincts are legitimate. If you get him with somebody that can develop that further in him and out of him, you can get yourself, I think while there's some doubt if he's going to be an every down rusher or edge setter, there's potential to still be that there. And I think, you look at him and you see a guy that has the motor and has the instincts and has the strength, has all that type of stuff. And even if he ends up just being somebody that can just come in and situationally get you a lot of sacks, I'll take that for the Chicago Bears because we need people who can get consistent pressure on the offense. Next up, TJ Parker out of Clemson. Now, this is a guy who's a junior, 6'3", 265 pounds. And last year, 5 sacks. The year before that, 11. The year before that, 11.5. He had 21.5 sacks over his 3-year collegiate career. And this is a guy that again, much like with all these other people, I like the instincts. I like the explosiveness. I like that. The power that he brings here. This guy that's really good. He recovered 3 fumbles as well last season. And I think that's the thing. He can create chaos on that defensive line. When you look at the scouting report for him, it says this. Powerful edge with NFL length, whose 2025 tape might be closer to his pro projection than the gaudy 2024 numbers. Parker's handwork is above average in both phases. He strikes early to set very firm edges, then sheds quickly to finish tackles. Average short area burst limits his ability to pursue the run in space and threaten tackles in a race to the top of the rush. He can long arm tackle into the pocket when he catches them right, but he fails to find quick solution when the approach stalls. So, listen, a guy that is limited there, right? And a guy that definitely would be there for the Chicago Bears at a number of their draft picks. TJ Parker had a down year. But the thing that was pointed out in the scouting report is that what he did last season may be more close to what the NFL production is expected for him. And the question that you have to look at then there is that if you get a guy that can average 5 or 6 sacks per year, right? Is that enough for you to look at that and feel like it does enough for your edge? I have some questions in regards to that, right? Now, my thing is that if the truth is somewhere between the 11 sacks and the 5 sacks that he had, if the truth is somewhere between the middle there, let's say he ends up being a 7 or 8 sack guy, I can get with that, right? I can get with that. I think that then you're still looking at Austin Booker. You're still looking at the improvement from the interior defensive line. But I do think this is a guy that can come in and help you right away. I just don't know if I would feel comfortable about him necessarily being the guy that is going to be there for you every step of the way, right? If he's going to be a guy that you look at and you're like, bet he's our future edge, we're set, we're good. I don't know if that's going to be the level that he's at, but I do like the talent there. Next up, Akheem Mesidor. Listen, I know Kev had him on his mocks, 6'3", 280 pounds. But when you look at this guy run, this is somebody that if you saw him running towards you in the alley, you got to just shoot him. Like you got to shoot him. You can't fight a guy like this. This is a guy that strength and power is ridiculously crazy, right? And when you look at it as well, big game experience for him. Miami did lose in the national championship game as well. You can't take that away from him. This is a guy that absolutely has played at some of the biggest stages as well. Big instinct there. He gives great effort. He has a great rush style as well. He has all the tools in the shed that you have to look for that. The scouting report on him says this. He's a problem for guards when reduced inside two. His urgency shows up in run defense where he uses play strength and short area quickness to disrupt blocking schemes and stay around the football. He won't be as long as most of the edge setters, and his anchor at this point is just average. The talent and motor are obvious, but the age and injury history could push some teams to discount his grade below what the tape shows. And that's a fair estimation there. But I'll tell you this, if you're talking about just taking somebody who just has the talent This is a guy that just has the talent. And I think you bring him in, and he can be a lot for you. The injury stuff is there, and I'm not going to overlook the injury stuff at all. But I think if you want to go some other positions earlier, and you get Akheem, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all. Lastly on this list, LT Overton, the senior out of Alabama. Depending on how you look at taking Alabama prospects, right? This is a guy that's never had a double-digit sack season in college. In his 4 years in college between Texas A&M and Alabama, he's never had a double-digit sack season. And that brings the biggest concern for me for him. But the question then becomes about is, do you feel like you can develop that a little bit more, right? Overton is a little bit slower. He does rely more on power, which is great. He's a rugged, very tough guy, tough motherfucker as well. 278 pounds and being 6'5", this guy can go. And he brings some of that. I do think he can help secure gaps and things like that. But I don't know if he necessarily takes advantage of some of the matchups that he can. I do think he's probably going to eventually move inside and be more of a 3 technique. So I think that's something, and that's something that's also in the draft analysis for him. So if you take him, I don't know if you're taking him to necessarily be an edge as much as you're taking him to be a 3 tech. And that's perfectly fine if you believe in what he's going to do. I think that a lot of mocks have him there to being in the second round, so he could be there for the Bears at pick number 57. I'm not necessarily mad at that. I'm not mad at that at all, but you got to still make sure that you're making improvements in other spaces. I like the overall talent that he brings here, especially as we talked about earlier. If you do move on from Dex, I do think that this guy can come in and be a 3 tech for you for sure, and that's what you're looking at for him for. But those are the edges that I think the Bears should be looking at today at the draft combine. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below as well. What do you think about the rumors? What do you think about what's happening? Again, this is, as I've been saying, this is what it looks like when you're trying to make the move to being a contender. You're not rebuilding, you're refining, you're tweaking, right? And Ryan Poles is listening, teams are calling, all those type of things. So the question that I have to you guys on, who's actually untouchable for this team? Who do you think is actually untouchable? Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow us at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related. That is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.